Hello everyone. Today our topic is protozoa. So protozoa is mentioned in the syllabus and the particular topics with regard to the protozoa, they are locomotion, nutrition, reproduction, sex, general features and life history of in particular Paramecium, Monocystis agilis, Plasmodium vivax and Leishmania. There are various questions that have been asked previously about the locomotion, about the nutrition, about the reproduction. But today we will first of all discuss about the general features. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the general features and classification. To give you an understanding about the protozoa, what type of organisms they are, and some of the features and how they have been classified. If you see here, you must have heard about Paramecium, about Euglena, about the amoeba, there is Giardia, there is Trypanosoma, there are Plasmodium, there is Center, there is Toxoplasma. So these are different types of the protozoa. Discussing about the general features of the protozoa, these are unicellular and these are eukaryotic. And these protozoa, there are about 65,000. There are about 65,000 species of protozoa. So these are unicellular, eukaryotic. Unicellular meaning they are single celled, they have a well defined nucleus, they have membrane bound organelles, and these are microscopic in size. They are about 10 to 50 micrometers in size or 10 to 50 microns. Some are larger than that, but the general range of the size of protozoa, it's around 50 micrometers. There is this particular type of locomotion that is found in the protozoa, like they have these locomotory organs. The movement is through flagella, cilia, pseudopodia, and some are non-motile. And non-motile are specifically the parasitic forms. If you will see flagella, they are present in Giardia. If you will see cilia, it's present in Paramecium. Pseudopodia, it's present in amoeba. So its body is like this, and there are pseudopodia. And we have to study this in detail. We will go into detail of types of locomotion and different types of locomotory organs, the theories related to locomotion. So yes, we will be discussing about it. Then nutrition. These have heterotrophic nutrition. They can even be autotrophic. Some are saprotrophic. Heterotrophic means when they feed like animals, they do the ingestion. They have phagocytosis, pinocytosis. This we will also study some of the types of nutrition. Then habitat, they are mostly present in aquatic environments, they are present in soil, they are present as endoparasite, and some may be found as ectoparasite, some may be found on the surface of the other organisms. So they thrive mostly in the wet condition, they are mostly found in the wet condition. Then reproduction, it's either asexual or sexual. The asexual reproduction, it's by binary fission, and there are various other types of asexual reproduction. We will study them in detail too. And in case of sexual reproduction, where the gamete formation takes place, it is found in Paramecium or syngamy in Plasmodium. We will be discussing this in detail. Then they do not have a cell wall. Like fungi and plants, they do not have cell wall, and they have some structure called as a pellicle, and it has a proper plasma membrane. They have complex life cycles. These are mostly parasitic, so they have completely multiple hosts and developmental stages. They have infective stages, and they also have different forms of infective stages or the developmental stages there, which are found in the life cycle. We will see it in detail in Plasmodium. We will see it in Agilis, this monocystis agilis, or in case of Leishmania, where we see amastigote, mastigote forms. So it has different developmental stages. They also form cysts because of the harsh conditions. These protozoa might be found in harsh conditions, which where they remain dormant, and in case of dormancy, this dormancy is maintained by the cysts that cover the body of this protozoa. So these are some of the general features, a general overview. We will be discussing in detail the four types of these four genus of protozoa, where you will get a deep understanding of how they are, what they are, how do they obtain their nutrition, how do they move from one place to another. Now, discussing about the classification. The protozoa have been classified into four different classes. First one are the amoeboids, which is a class Sarcodina or Rhizopoda. Okay, amoeboids. The locomotion in this case is using the false feet, that is the pseudopodia. So the locomotion is through pseudopodia. You see, in case of amoeba, there are these lobe-like structures. These are called as the pseudopodia. The nutrition is by phagocytosis. So what happens if in case of amoeba, there is a prey, it enters the body, and then it engulfs the food and then digests it inside the body. So this is phagocytosis. Then its habitat is mostly aquatic or it's parasitic. Examples are Amoeba proteus and Amoeba histolytica. Amoeba proteus is a free living, it's in fresh water, and Entamoeba, it's a parasitic organism. It is the causative organism for amoebic dysentery in humans. Then the next one is flagellates. Flagellates are the mastigophora or zoomastigophora. These have locomotory organs which are called as flagella. Flagella is a whip-like structure. In case of Euglena, you will see this organism, it has a long whip-like structure. This whip-like structure is called as the flagella, this whip-like structure. These are either autotrophic or heterotrophic. For example, Euglena, it's autotrophic. The habitat is mostly aquatic or parasitic. Example is Trypanosoma. Example is Giardia, Euglena. These are different types of protozoa which are in the class Mastigophora. Then we have class Coeliophora. Class Coeliophora include the locomotory organs which are cilia. They have typically two types of nucleus, macronucleus and micronucleus. In Paramecium, you will see that there is micronucleus and one big vegetative macronucleus. Again, we will be discussing this in detail. Reproduction is either asexual or sexual reproduction, and examples include Paramecium, Blantidium coli. Blantidium is a parasitic organism. It causes blantidiasis, and Paramecium, it's Paramecium caudatum. It's a freshwater ciliate. Then is class Sporozoa or Epicomplexa. The class Sporozoa, it's non-motile in mature state, and it is mostly they form the obligate parasites with complex lifestyles, and they often involve in spore formation, and they have both asexual and sexual stages. Examples include Plasmodium, that causes malaria, Toxoplasma, which causes toxoplasmosis, Cryptosporidium, which causes diarrhea in case of immunocompromised individuals. So these are the classes of the protozoa. Or to explore the new habitats, or for foraging, mating, and even for dispersal and contributing to the balance in the ecology and as well as the evolution. So there are different types of movement that you will see in the protozoa. The first movement is amoeboid movement. Amoeboid movement is using the structure of pseudopodia, and the example of the organisms, they include amoeba and entamoeba, and they belong to the group Sarcodina. Then we have the flagellar movement. I have already taught you the different classes. So Sarcodina is the amoeboids that use the pseudopodia. So next is the flagellar movement. In flagellar movement, the structure used is flagella. It is present in Giardia and Trypanosoma, and it's also present in the, it is overall present in the group of Mastigophora, class Mastigophora. The ciliary movements is using cilia, and it's observed in Paramecium and Blantidium. It belongs to the class Celiophora. Then gliding movement as such, it does not involve any structure, but there is an internal, they have an internal structure that is known as the glidiosome. The glidiosome complex. So it contains the glidiosome complex. It is found in Plasmodium, it's found in Toxoplasma, and it's found in the class Sporozoa. Then there is a different type of movement, that is twitching mobility. It is in the form of rapid, jerky movements. It is by the organs called as pili or extrusomes. It's found in Paramecium and also in Stentor. So these are some basic different types of movements. Now we will discuss them in details. First of all, the flagellary movement, or it is using the flagella. The flagella movement, it contains a structure that is flagella. This flagella is whip-like in shape. You can see it's whip-like in shape. It has a 9+2 arrangement in it. There is a 9+2 arrangement where 9 doublet microtubules, they are arranged in a ring. So you can see there are these 9 doublet microtubules and they are formed in a ring, and there are 2 microtubules in the center. That's why we call it 9+2 arrangement. Then this entire structure is called the exoneme. This is based on the sliding filament model of flagellar movement. The explanation of the flagellar movement, it has been explained using the model of sliding filament model. In case of sliding filament model, there are components, 3 major components. First is Dynein arms. These Dynein arms, they are attached to the A tubule of each doublet. So these Dynein arms, these are the Dynein arms. These are this is the A component, A microtubule of the, you can see here is subfiber A, this is the subfiber A, this is the subfiber B. So these Dyneins are attached to the A tubule of each doublet. Then these microtubules, they help in the tracking moment. They serve as the tracks for the movement, and the energy is provided by the ATP. What happens that these Dynein arms, they walk along the adjacent microtubule doublet using energy that is released by ATP hydrolysis. ATP breakdown gives the energy, and these Dynein arms, they walk along the microtubule doublet, and this causes the sliding between adjacent microtubules. So this in all, it finally helps in different types of motions, that is wave-like movement or whip-like motion or the propelling protozoan. These are the different types of movements that are carried out using the sliding filament. So this is the molecular basis. Then we see there are different types of flagella. There are different structures of flagella. Here you can see there is single flagella attached to the protozoa. There can be a group of flagella. There can be flagella on both sides. There can be flagella on whole body. So these are the different types of flagella present in the protozoa. These include monotrichous. Monotrichous is single flagellum, for example in Euglena. Then we have lophotrichous. Lophotrichous is the tuft of flagella at one end. These are found in some free living forms. Then amphitrichous, that is one flagellum at one end. It is rare in protozoa but still found in some protozoa. Then there is peritrichous. Peritrichous is when the flagella is present around the body. Multiflagellate means there is presence of multiple flagella. For example, in Giardia, there are flagellum which are attached. They form the undulating membrane. For example, Trypanosoma. Then we have sensory flagellum. They are for environmental detection, for example in Euglena. So this is about the concept of flagellum. The flagella shows different types of movement. First one is the undulating movement. So undulating movement is the movement where the flagella, it does the motion and even body is involved in the motion. This is the direction. These are the undulating movements. Then there is propeller motion. Propeller. Here the flagella, it acts like a propeller. So this organism, this flagella, it acts like a propeller, and then it shows a rotary motion like a boat propeller. Okay, it's found in Euglena. Then we have lashing movement. Lashing movement is the whip-like movement. It's the whip-like movement. This is the lashing movement. Then there is paddling or beating movement. There is beating movement. So these are the four types of movement. First is undulating, second one is propeller like, lashing, and beating. Beating is found in Trichomonas, lashing is found in Giardia, propeller like is found in Euglena, and undulating movement is found in Trypanosoma. So these are the different types of flagellar movements. Then we have ciliary movement. Cilia is a similar structure like flagellum, but in case of cilia, the height of the cilium, it's shorter than the flagella. So cilia are the short, and these are hair-like projections. They cover the body, they cover the cell surface entirely or partially. So here you can see this is a cilia. This is a flagellum. Flagellum is longer compared to cilia. In cilia too, you will find this 9+2 arrangement. There are dynein arms. There is single singlet microtubule in the center. So this whole structure, this whole portion, it's called as the axoneme. It has a basal body in the base, which is attached to the kinetoplast or the blepharoplast. So the ciliary movement, there is 9+2 arrangement, and again it's powered by ATP. It also works on the same model that we have discussed, that is sliding filament model. The dynein motor proteins are present. They use ATP to walk around the along the adjacent microtubule doublets. So cilia beat in a coordinated and rhythmic pattern. So this is a movement using the cilia. And there are various types of motion using the cilia. First one is a metachronal wave. You will observe in case of, for example, this is a surface and there are various cilia present on the surface. They produce a wave-like motion. A group of cilia, they produce a wave-like motion. This is called as a metachronal wave. This metachronal wave, it is a synchronized forward beating of cilia. It's a synchronized forward beating of cilia. You will observe it in paramecium. So there is also feeding motion of the cilia. The cilia, they are present around the cytostome from where the food is taken in. It helps in ingestion. There is also reversive motion, that is the avoidance motion. There is also the rotatory or spinning motion. It helps in the locomotion and feeding. The overall, it's found in paramecium. You can write the example of paramecium in case of ciliary motion. Then we have amoeboid movements. The amoeboid movements are carried out in Sarcodina and some of the mastigophore. and these are using the pseudopodia. Now pseudopodia, they are temporary and cytoplasmic projections. So cytoplasm move in the pseudopodia. They are used by amoeboid protozoa for locomotion and feeding, and they have different shapes and structures and have different functions too. They are classified into different types based on the shape. First one is the lobopodia. These are broad, these are blunt, and they help in movement and feeding. They are found in amoeba and entamoeba. So this is the lobopodia. These are the lobopodia. Then there are filopodia. Filopodia are thin and tapering. You can see in this. This is Chlamydophis. In this case, there is this filopodia. Then we have reticulopodia. These are net-like. These are net-like and branched. These are present in the foraminifera. Then we have exopodia. They are stiff, they have microtubule structure, and they are feeding and sensory. These are found in the actinospherium or radiolaria. So these are the different types of pseudopodia. Now the mechanism of movement using the pseudopodia, it's explained by the theory given by Mast and Pantin, the change in viscosity theory. This was given as the sol-gel hypothesis, solation and gelation. The basic structure is, for example, this is the organism, this is the forward, the direction in which it's moving. This is called as the hyaline cap, and the back portion is called as the uroid or the tail portion. So what happens, there are two basic things. There is plasma gel and plasma sol. At the end there is solation, at the front it's gelation. This is the basic structure. Now we will see it in detail. The sol-gel hypothesis of the amoebic movement, it involves some certain it involves the ectoplasm and the endoplasm. You can see this outer portion, this outer the cytoplasm, it's called as the ectoplasm, and the inner one, it's called as the endoplasm. The outer one is more viscous, it's gel like, and inner one is fluid like, it's sol like. It's a sol layer, inner one. So how does it happen? How it's carried out? First of all, there is gel to sol conversion at the rear end. There is cytoplasmic streaming, then the sol to gel conversion at the front, and there is cell body flow. The whole body flows. We will see the mechanism using the diagram, but you have to understand there is involvement of F-actin fibers. These actin filaments, they involve G-actin and F-actin, but here we will be using the F-actin filaments. It involves myosin 2. Myosin proteins interact with the actin to generate the contractile force. Here the myosin 2 is primarily involved, that is the non-muscular myosin. Then we also will see that there is use of calcium ions, which is the regulatory signal for actin polymerization, myosin activation, and membrane dynamics. If you see here, this is the whole organism and it's moving in the forward direction. There is flow of endoplasm in the center. What happens? First of all, you observe that there are calcium ions, there are myosin proteins, there is presence of this actin. So at the end, at the rear end, solation takes place. Here the calcium, these calcium ion, they activate the actin binding protein, and due to the activation of the actin binding protein, there is the binding of myosin to the actin filaments at the posterior end, and this helps in the contraction. This causes the contraction. So this is how solation takes place at the end. Here you will observe there is depolymerization of actin filament in presence of the calcium. So depolymerization, this is the polymerized form here, and it causes this involves the depolymerization, and then this calcium, they activate the actin binding protein, which involves the fusion of the myosin to actin. Then you will observe at the front end, from where the motion takes place, from where the hyaline cap is present, you will observe here there is actin binding protein, there is actin, there is myosin, and here the polymerization takes place at this end. Gelation, polymerization, gelation, here the gel form is formed at the end. And at this end there will be release of actin from the actin binding protein, and later you will see at this end polymerization of actin proteins takes place. So first of all, there is signal activation. This is using the calcium influx. Then actin polymerization takes place, where this G actin and ATP, they form the F actin at the leading edge, okay, where this edge, which is the barbed edge, and this causes the membrane protrusion. The F actin, they push the plasma membrane outwards, they form the pseudopodium, and it helps it in the addition to the substrate, and addition to the substrate is using separate proteins that are the integrin like proteins. Then there are also myosin based contractions where myosin 2 is involved. They interact with actin at the rear end and they contract the cell body, and actin depolymerization takes place where the F actin, they break down at rear end and G actin is again recycled. So F will again break down here into G is recycled, and here G involves in the formation of F actin. So this is whole process where you will explain the molecular basis based on the solation and gelation and involving actin and myosin protein. So this is the molecular mechanism. Then we have four type of motion, that is the gliding movement. Gliding movement involves the glidiosome complex. There is a proper motor maintain fixed position with respect to the substratum, and it pushes the body forward. Now this motor, this contains actin filament, myosin filaments, and it's a continuous, smooth and substrate dependent movement. It does not involve flagella, cilia or pseudopodia. It's used by obligate intracellular parasites to invade the host or traverse the tissue, invade the host or enter into the tissue, and it also helps in to disseminate in host environment. The process involves the adhesion secretion. First of all, the adhesion secretion happens. These transmembrane adhesins, they are secreted from the micronemes. These are special secretory organelles present in the organism. These bind to the receptor on the host surface or the substrate. Then there is assembly of the actin filaments that involve F actin filaments. These are polymerized beneath the plasma membrane, and these are controlled by the ABPs and regulated by the calcium ions, because calcium ions, they are the regulatory signal for the actin binding protein. Then it's myosin mediated sliding. Myosin mediated sliding involves the myosin A. It is anchored to the inner membranes. So myosin will be anchored at the inner membranes, and these actins, they are arranged in this manner, and it helps it to walk along the actin filaments, and thus it will push the organism forward. Then we have forward propulsions when it slides along the actin fibers, and lastly it has disengagement and recycling. That is that adhesins, these are cleaved or endocytosed, and new adhesins are deposited for continuous motion. So new adhesins will be deposited as the organism moves forward. So what is the importance of locomotion? First of all, it helps in dispersal of the organism and dispersal of the colony so that it can colonize a new area. It helps in the movement. Next is the foraging and feeding. It helps in foraging, feeding. It's helpful in finding the prey. It's helpful in capturing the prey, and it helps in host invasion and infection, as well as escaping from the predators, as well as environmental adaptation where the pH is high, where the salinity is high, where there is temperature difference. So in order to move towards an optimum environment, environmental adaptations are important. And then locating the mate for reproduction, because it has to reproduce with the fellow organism. So this is whole about the locomotion. You can answer any. Now we will discuss about the nutrition in protozoa. The nutrition in protozoa, the questions related to the nutrition in protozoa, they have been asked already in the exam. For example, the account of nutrition in protozoa, given account of nutrition, brief account of nutrition and osmoregulation in Euglena. So here we will discuss about the nutrition in protozoa. In case of protozoans, they exhibit diverse modes of nutrition, and it depends upon the habitat, it depends upon the physiology and the lifestyle of the particular protozoa that we will discuss. Different types of nutritional strategy, they are of different types. First one is holozoic nutrition or the phagotrophic nutrition. It's also called as a zootrophic or ingestive nutrition. In this case, the solid particles, just like higher organisms, the solid particles at the lower level, that is taken into the body, and then this food is enclosed in food vacuoles called as a phagosomes, which are the digestive vacuoles in the protozoa. This type of nutrition is common in free living protozoans, and the ingestion is via pseudopodia, cilia, or mouth parts. The mouth parts in this case is called as a cytostome, and then the digestion inside the vacuole takes place, absorption of the nutrients takes place, and then the undigested waste, it comes out through the egestion of the vacuole takes place. So this is the food particle. If you see, this is the food particle, this is the nucleus, this is amoeba. There is extension of these pseudopodia around the food particle. Then the food particle, there is formation of this food vacuole. It enters into the body. Here it's disintegrated by the enzymes and the nutrients are absorbed inside the body, and the waste material is thrown out of the body. If you will see that firstly the circumvallation takes place around the food particle. This is the circumvallation. There is circumvallation of pseudopodia. Then the invagination of the food cup. This is the food cup formation. This food cup will go into the body and it will form the vacuole. This food cup is formed in which the food particle is taken in. Then the import takes place. Import means the food, it enters into the body, and then there is circumfluence. If you will see that amoeba, it has surrounded the whole food particle. For example, it's eating the algal filament. So this is how the holozoic or zootrophic nutrition takes place. The examples are Amoeba proteus, Paramecium caudatum. So second type of nutrition is saprophytic nutrition or the osmotrophic nutrition. In this case, the protozoa, it absorbs the dissolved organic matter through the plasma membrane. There is no ingestion of the particles, and it's common in parasitic or the decomposer forms. And its example is Entamoeba histolytica and Monocystis. Then we have parasitic nutrition. In this case, the parasite, it resides over the body of the host. It's often formed in the disease-causing protozoa. It may absorb the body fluids or tissue products or pre-digested material. Two types of parasites are obligate parasites and facultative parasite. Obligate parasites are those parasites that must live inside the host. For example, Plasmodium, that causes the malaria. It lives inside the host, whether it's female Anopheles or the human. Then facultative parasite. They can live freely or parasitically over the body. For example, this is Naegleria fowleri. Its examples include Plasmodium and Trypanosoma. Then autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition is the nutrition that is performed in case of protozoa that are able to synthesize their own food through the process of photosynthesis, just like plants. They contain the chloroplast and symbiotic algae. They are found in the sunlit aquatic environment. For example, Euglena and Chlamydomonas. If you will see that in case of Euglena, you will observe this is the nucleus, this is the flagella, and it has chloroplast inside its body. So it helps in autotrophic or holophytic nutrition. Then we have mixotrophic nutrition. Mixotrophic nutrition is a combination of autotrophs or heterotrophs, and they can photosynthesize when light is available, and they can even ingest the food when the light is not available. So its example is Euglena gracilis. You will also observe one more type of nutrition that is called as the pinocytosis. So pinocytosis is another type of nutrition. You can see it's also called as cell drinking. Cell drinking. The fluids are taken in. In this case, the food is taken inside. You can see here there is presence of extracellular fluid here. And then the plasma membrane, it invaginates, it takes inside the fluid and forms the pinosomes. The channels are formed, and pinosome, it's taken inside the body when it forms a pinosome or the vesicle. This is the fourth type of, this is the last type of nutrition, that is the pinocytosis. Sixth type of nutrition, pinocytosis. It's also found in certain flagellates in the protozoa. So these are all the types. The reproduction in protozoa. Again, many questions have been asked from the portion of reproduction. For example, explain the modes of asexual and sexual reproduction. What is conjugation? What is autogamy? The conjugation. So questions have been repeated regarding the reproduction in protozoa. So starting with the methods of reproduction. As you know that reproduction, it is the method of carrying forward the generation. It is the process of formation of new organism or production of progeny. So there are various methods of reproduction that are found in protozoa. First one is the asexual reproduction. The asexual reproduction has different types. We will study them in detail. Then we have sexual reproduction. Then we have nuclear reorganization, and there are certain other forms of reproduction. Primarily, we will be discussing about the asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction and the types further. So asexual reproduction, first type of asexual reproduction is binary fission. As the word suggests, this binary means the parent body itself. The parent divides into two equal daughter individuals, and then firstly the nucleus divides and then the cytoplasm divides. So it is the division of the parent into two different individuals. You can see in case of amoeba there is simple binary fission. The organism has been divided into two equal halves. The parent has been divided into two equal halves. This is simple binary fission. Next one that we see in Euglena, it is longitudinal binary fission. It has been divided longitudinally. There is division along a vertical plane. Then you will see in Paramecium there is binary fission, that's transverse binary fission. There is horizontal division between the the parent divides horizontally. There is transverse binary fission along the transverse plane found in paramecium. Then we have oblique binary fission. In case of oblique binary fission, the body divides along one oblique plane. So these are different types of binary fission. Then the second type of asexual reproduction, it's multiple fission. In case of multiple fission, the nucleus divides many times. So the nucleus divides many times. First the mitosis happens and then the fragmentation takes place. After the nuclear division, it is followed by the cytoplasmic division. So there is this parent cell, the nucleus undergoes mitosis. There is mitosis. This will divide many times, and then along with the cytoplasm, they will divide into daughter cells, and there will be production of many similar protozoa. The multiple fission, first of all, it is found in form of schizogony, that is asexual cycle of reproduction. It is found in Plasmodium. Then gamogony, it is the formation of multiple gametes, for example in monocystis, and sporogony, that is the formation of multiple spores. So this is the multiple fission. Then plasmatomy. In case of plasmatomy, as the name suggests, the plasma, okay, in this case there is this multinucleate organism. Its cytoplasm divides, but its nuclei do not divide. Okay, so you can see there is this cytoplasmic projections along the body, and there are multiple nucleus. So these are the daughter nuclei, and this is the residual cytoplasm, and you can see the daughter nuclei are there. The nuclei has been in this cytoplasmic projection. So the cytoplasm divides. This is a cytoplasmic mass, it divides, but the nuclei, they do not divide. For example, in case of Opalina. Then we have fourth type of asexual reproduction, that is budding. It is found in smaller individuals. It arises from the parent body. Okay, the bud. We have seen in Hydra 2 how the bud was formed. The parent body, it gave rise to small knob-like structure. It was a bud. So here also we have budding, and the budding is found in Suctoria. For example, in Noctiluca. For example, in Entamoeba. In these cases, we see budding. Example, there is one more example, Ephelota. You can see there are exogenous buds. These are the exogenous buds. In case of Noctiluca and Entamoeba, you will see the endogenous buds. Endogenous buds. So there is formation of endogenous as well as exogenous buds. Now next we will see the sexual reproduction, very important topic. In case of sexual reproduction, you know that the fusion of gametes or the fusion of the pronuclei with or without formation of gametes, okay? When the gametes are formed, the gametes fuse, and when the pronuclei are there may be fusion of gametes or there may not be any fusion of gametes. We will see it in coming example. The importance of sexual reproduction is recombination, okay? There is change in the genetic material. It helps in evolution. So first type of sexual reproduction is the syngamy. Okay, first one is the syngamy. Syngamy means the fusion of pronuclei of two gametes to form the zygote and the synkaryon. Okay, so first we will explain this autogamy, and through this autogamy, this autogamy, it will explain the syngamy, as well as it is also having the nucleolar, it will also have the nuclear organization. So you can put autogamy in example of syngamy as well as nuclear organization. So what happens in this case? The fusion of gametes derived from the same parent takes place. So there is not involvement of two different parents. The same parents, the gametes inside the same parent, they are used. Okay. For example, it's found in Paramecium aureolum. So autogamy, it is found in paramecium. It's the process in which the nuclear reorganization occurs with a single individual. This does not involve another paramecium. I will explain paramecium here only because whatever the question is, like if it question asks about the sexual reproduction, so you can explain it in that heading. You can also explain it in different question, because separately a question on autogamy has been asked. So it's a type of syngamy. So discussing about the autogamy, the steps involved in the autogamy, firstly there is this diploid nucleus. Okay, there is formation of diploid nucleus, that is the zygotic nucleus, by the fusion of two haploid nuclei. It's derived from the same parent, not any other parent. Okay. So the different steps of autogamy in paramecium, it includes the initiation, and the initiation is due to the unfavorable conditions, for example starvation or aging. Then the meiosis of micronucleus takes place, then the degeneration of three haploid nucleus, then there is mitosis, then nuclear fusion takes place, that is syngamy, and macronuclear development happens later on after the old macronuclei have degenerated, and rejuvenation of the organism takes place, and later on the cell division. So it's clear from this diagram. It will be more clear from this diagram rather than the steps ahead in the theory. So in exam you will draw a properly labeled diagram whenever the question regarding the autonomy is asked. Firstly you have this organism. Okay, you have this organism. This has one macronucleus. This red one is the macronucleus, and it has two micronuclei. This macronucleus is breaks down and it's absorbed by the cytoplasm. So you can see it has been broken down and it has been absorbed by the cytoplasm. But there are two micronuclei. Okay. Then these two diploid micronuclei. Diploid means each micronuclei has two sets of chromosome, 2n. Two diploid micronuclei, they divide mitotically and they form 8 haploid daughter nuclei. Okay. These will divide mitotically. Now this first one will form 4 micronuclei, second one will form 4 micronuclei. Therefore here will be 8 micronuclei. Then 7 out of these 8 micronuclei, they degenerate, they disintegrate. Once they get disintegrated, we have only 1 micronuclei. Now this micronuclei, this is now haploid because it has undergone the process of meiosis. Now this one micronucleus is divides by mitosis to produce the 2 gamete nuclei. So it will form 2 gametic nuclei, which are the haploid nuclei. Now it enters into the protoplasmic cone. So paramecium has one portion here which is the protoplasmic cone. So these 2 micronuclei, they enter the protoplasmic cone where the fertilization takes place, where the fusion of the gametes takes place. So this is what we call syngamy. Here the syngamy takes place. After the syngamy, the zygote is formed. There, this is diploid zygote. It divides twice to form 4 nuclei. Now it divides twice to form the 4 nuclei. So we have 4 nuclei now. And out of 4 nuclei, 2 will become micronucleus and 2 will become macronucleus. After that, 2 will now we have these 2 are macro, and these smaller ones are the micronuclei, and then further the cell can further divide. So this is the syngamy, or with the help of the type of autogamy, I explained the syngamy as whole, but here only one individual has been involved. So these are the steps of autogamy. You will write it down whenever the question regarding the autogamy in paramecium is asked. Now this was the autogamy. There are certain other types of syngamy. First one is the Isogamy. Isogamy means when the fusion of two morphologically identical gametes takes place. For example, in case of Spirogyra, the gametes are same. Male female gametes look same, and when they fuse, they form this isogamy. They form the zygote. It's called as isogamy. Then anisogamy. Anisogamy is the fusion of gametes which are morphologically different, but both are motile. Both male as well as female. They are morphologically different, but they are motile. For example, Eudorina or Chlamydomonas. Then oogamy. Oogamy is very common. It is the formation of zygote using the large non-motile egg that we see in humans also. There is this large non-motile egg and a small motile sperm. It's found in humans and other animals. There is endogamy. Endogamy is the fusion of gametes from the same individual. For example, in Paramecium, autogamy is also one form of endogamy. Okay, then there is exogamy. Exogamy is the fusion of gametes from different individuals. It's like the sexual reproduction, the commonly studied sexual reproduction. Then hologamy is the entire mature unicellular organism. They fuse together. For example, this is Chlamydomonas. They fuse together. Whole organism fuses. It happens mostly under stress conditions. This is the whole idea of syngamy. After that, we have conjugation. Okay. Conjugation is another type of sexual reproduction. But in case of conjugation, you will observe we have two individuals which are called as the conjugants. Okay. These conjugants, these unite. These conjugants unite. You can see, and the barrier, that is the plasma, plasma membrane, it breaks down when they come closer to each other. The macronucleus that disintegrates. You can see the macronucleus again has been disintegrated, and the micronucleus, they divide two times. The micronucleus inside this will divide, micronucleus inside this will divide, and again these 8 nuclei are formed. 3 nuclei degenerate in each of the conjugant. 3 have been degenerated from here, 3 have been degenerated from this one. Now what happens? One will form the male pronuclei and another will form the female pronuclei. Okay, so one will form the male and another will form the female, and then the fusion takes place. The zygotic nucleus is formed. The fusion of the male and female, it takes place inside the conjugates. Then the separation of conjugates happen. Now these conjugates will separate. Now that they have been separated, they undergo 3 successive divisions, and both of them will undergo 3 successive divisions. Even conjugate A, even conjugate B. When they will undergo these successive divisions, they form about 8 nuclei, and out of 8, 3 will degenerate. In both the cases, similar process will be followed. Now 3 will degenerate. After the 3 degeneration, the micronuclei, they divide. Okay, these smaller ones are the micronuclei and this one is the macronucleus. This micronuclei will divide now. After this division of the micronuclei, sorry, this is the micronuclei, the smaller one. This is the micronuclei. Let me just... This is the micronuclei. This micronucleus divides and it forms 2 micronuclei. You see here, there are 2 micronuclei. After that, it will further divide. Okay, it will further, once this has been divided, now it will further divide. It will further divide and it will form 4 daughter cells. Now 4 daughter cells have been formed. 4 are formed here, 4 are formed here from conjugate A, conjugate B, and we have in total 8 daughter cells. So what happens? First of all, this conjugation, it happens in Paramecium and it's a type of sexual reproduction. Here, 2 genetically distinct individuals, they exchange the genetic material through direct contact. Now conjugation in Paramecium is a temporary union of 2 individuals of opposite mating types. One is male, another is female. Here the first of all pair formation takes place between the conjugates. The conjugates come together. Then there is formation of conjugation bridge, where the cytoplasmic bridges are formed and in between the plasma membrane is degenerated. Then the degeneration of macronucleus takes place. The old macronucleus in both the cells, it degenerates, and the meiosis of the micronucleus takes place. When this meiosis takes place, it produces 4 haploid nuclei. So here you see it produces 4 haploid nuclei after the meiosis. So here meiosis takes place and formation of 4 haploid nuclei. Now that 4 haploid nuclei have been formed, now nuclear selection happens. Okay, the 3 haploid nuclei degenerate and one survive. One which is the fittest, it will survive. Then the mitosis of the surviving nucleus takes place. This haploid, it forms 2 pronuclei. These pronuclei, they transfer from the male to female, and this fusion of male female gamete takes place, that is the syngamy. After the further reorganization, further degeneration of the micronuclei of the nuclei, that's those 3 nuclei, and division of the cell, new micronucleus and macronucleus is formed, and then the separation of the cells takes place. So this is the whole overview of conjugation, how conjugation happens, the theory regarding conjugation, and the types of reproduction. Now we will have a brief understanding of the importance of sexual or the benefits of sexual reproduction. First of all, genetic variation. It brings in the genetic variation. And due to the genetic variation, there is evolution. You know that the feeding point for evolution is the variation. Then it also helps the organism to adapt to changing environment. Due to exchange of genetic material. It also helps in rejuvenation. It increases vitality as well as vigor. Vigor involves the sexual reproduction and then increase in the production of the offsprings. You can also include that it also helps in survival of unfavorable survival in unfavorable conditions, as the weak genes, they are removed and the strong genes, they are carried forward. So this is the idea of reproduction in protozoa. So now we will discuss the topic of about the general features and life cycle of paramecium and monocystis. If you'll observe in previous papers, the topics, the questions related to paramecium and monocystis, they have been asked. You can see majorly the reproduction, the part reproduction that I've already taught you, the conjugation I've already taught you. There is the autogamy, it has been already taught. So the questions have been asked from that portion. And then we have life history of paramecium, then life history of monocystis, the questions you can see gamontogamy, the question regarding the conjugation. The questions have been asked from these topics, so this is one of the important topics. And later on we will discuss about the plasmodium and leishmania. First of all, let's see the general features of the paramecium. The paramecium, it is slipper-like and it's also called as the slipper animalcule, and you will see the systematic position of paramecium. It belongs to the phylum Protozoa, class Coeliophora, family Paramecidae, genus Paramecium. Then looking at the general features, it's a unicellular organism. It is made up of only one cell. It has a ciliated surface. When you will observe here, the body is covered by numerous cilia. It has a number of cilia, and these cilia, they arise from these alveoli. Okay, they arise from these alveoli, and they come out through the openings of the trichocysts. At the same time, that this outer covering, it's called as the pellicle. It is hard, it is thick, but at the same time it's flexible. You can see there are these small ridges are there that helps them to move freely. And these cilia show particular waves which are called as the metachronal waves. We have already discussed this. So the body is ciliated. The body is ciliated, covered with numerous cilia which beat rhythmically, and they also facilitate movement and food intake. They have a distinct shape. It is ovoid and slipper-like. The size is around 30 to 300 micrometers. The pellicle structure, it is supported by a firm yet flexible pellicle, providing shape and protection. The oral groove and feeding, it happens through a small groove. It leads to the cytostome and into the gullet. So you see at this position there is presence of this oral groove. There is cytostome, the mouth-like structure, and cytopharynx, that is the pharynx-like structure, which ends up into the food vacuole. The food comes inside the body from this oral groove only. Okay, you also observe this, the outer portion of the cytoplasm is ectoplasm, and inside we have endoplasm. It has two nuclei. One is smaller nuclei and one is big. Smaller is called as the micronuclei, and the bigger is called as the macronucleus. So the excretory material, it comes out of the body through the cytopage, and it has some contractile vacuoles too. That is for the osmoregulation. So oral groove, there is presence of oral groove, it leads to the cytostome. There is contractile vacuole, it is for osmoregulation. It has dual nuclei. We saw there is macronuclei that controls the metabolic activities, and there is micronucleus that is involved in reproduction. That's why whenever we were studying about the conjugation or the orthogamy, we saw that the macronucleus, it did not divide, but it disintegrated when the division took place. It shows asexual reproduction by binary fission and sexual reproduction. We already saw conjugation, orthogamy, hemixis. There is one nuclear reorganization, that is the endomixis. Its habitat is freshwater, mostly ponds, lakes, streams, and it feeds on the dead and decaying matter. So if you will see the types of reproduction, in case of asexual reproduction, there is transverse fission. So there is transverse fission, which is the type of the binary fission, and you see there is this adult paramecium. It will have this transverse horizontal plane, will divide it into two daughter paramecia, and after the formation of these daughter cells, they will become adult paramecium. So from one paramecium we get two daughter cells. In case of sexual reproduction, we have conjugation, orthogamy. We have discussed it in previous lecture in detail, so you will write that here, or whenever the question comes from the exam, that is enough content. Then we have hemixis. Hemixis is a lesser known and lesser asked. They will not ask you about hemixis, but in this case there is macronucleus fragments, and it releases the chromatin bodies which are absorbed in the cytoplasm, and it does not involve meiosis or fusion. So hemixis is different, but the most important is conjugation and orthogamy. At the same time, I'll also make you understand endomixis, which is the nuclear reorganization. So in case of endomixis, you will observe that we have an adult paramecium. There is macronucleus and two micronuclei. This macronucleus, it degenerates, and these micronuclei, they start dividing, they start division, and after the division there are formation of 8 micronuclei, and out of 8 micronuclei, 6 get degenerated, and only 2 remain. When these 2 remain, this cytoplasm gets divided. The paramecium, it shows binary fission. It underwent binary fission. Once it undergoes binary fission, the micronucleus further divides, and at the end there is formation of one macronucleus and two micronuclei, and finally we have four daughter paramecium cells. Same points have been written here, that it is the process of internal nuclear reorganization. It occurs within a single paramecium individual, and it's reported in paramecium aurelium and chordatum, and it happens at regular intervals. So there is first of all the macronuclear degeneration, then micronuclear division, there is nuclear selection in case of those eight daughter micronuclei, out of which six get degenerated. So in this case two are selected, nuclear selection. Binary fission takes place, this one will divide into two with one micronucleus, and then the further divisions give rise to finally four daughter paramecium. And the significance, it helps in the rejuvenation of the organism. So this is all about the endomixis and reproduction. Again, I'll tell you to go back and study this conjugation in detail. Questions are asked. It has been discussed very deeply in the topic that we have already discussed. That was the reproduction in protozoa. Now let's see the nutrition in paramecium. In case of nutrition in paramecium, the food digestion process, it takes place through this oral groove. From the oral groove, there you can see there is vestibule. Vestibule is an opening at the surface. From that portion there is this buccal cavity. The food enters into the cytostome and then cytopharynx, and then this food vacuole is formed. Once this food vacuole is formed, it undergoes circulation in the cytoplasm. This process is called as a cyclosis. It undergoes the cyclosis, where this food, it's broken down, the lysis of the food takes place by the enzymes, and the nutrients are absorbed. Okay, absorption of the nutrients takes place here. Digestion takes place, then absorption of the nutrients takes place, and finally the waste material, it comes out through the cytoproct or the cytopyge. That is the this anal pore. It will come out of the anal pore. So this is the whole structure of the nutrition or digestion in paramecium, process of nutrition in paramecium. Now we will discuss about the Monocystis agilis. Okay, so Monocystis agilis, it is actually from the phylum Protozoa, class Teleospora, order is Eugrigarinedia, genus Monocystis, species is agilis. You can see the structure. It has a simple structure. It is spindle shaped. It has the outer ectoplasm and inner endoplasm and one nucleus. Okay, so the shape is spindle shaped, it's worm like, and approximately 500 micrometer long and 40 micrometer wide. It is covered by thick, smooth, permeable outer layer. Why permeable outer layer? Because the excretory wastes and it's saprozoic in feeding, that's why it needs a permeable outer layer. The cytoplasm, it's divided into ecto and endoplasm. It has contractile fibers, so its body, they contain the contractile fiber which helps it in the movement, which are called as the myonemes. You can see the contractile fibers in it are called as the myonemes. It has a single anteriorly located nucleus and distinct nucleolus and nuclear membrane. Nutrition is saprozoic. It will absorb the nutrients from the pellicle, and respiration is anaerobic without the oxygen. There is release of lactic acid from glycogen and paraglycogen. Then excretion of nitrogenous waste, it also occurs through the pellicle. That's why it was permeable. It has myonemes. That's why it shows two types of movement. One is the wriggling movement, another one is the gliding movement. Okay, so the reproduction, it is sexual reproduction through the process of gamontogamy, and the question regarding the gamontogamy has been asked. So you have to know the detail about the life cycle. In case of gamontogamy, you will explain the life cycle of the this monocystis. It is monogenetic. That is, it completes its life cycle in one host, and transmission is through the sporocyst. It's released into to the soil via the earthworm's death. So what happens, for example, we have this earthworm, it's seminal vesicle here, and the sporozoites are present in the seminal vesicle. When it dies, these sporozoites are released in the soil, and they will be taken up by the new earthworm. So the transmission takes place by the release of the sporocysts into the soil via the dead earthworm. And infection site, the seminal vesicle of the earthworms, it is the site of infection where these reside, these sporozoites reside. And then the developmental stages include sporozoites, trophozoites, gametocyte, and spore stages. So let's see the life cycle of monocystis. First of all, you will see the adult trophozoite. So you have to remember trophozoite, sporozoite, sporocyst. These are some of the terms that you need to retain by revising and by practicing these life cycles. So this is the adult trophozoite. This is adult trophozoite. It has these myonemes. There is pellicle, there is one centrally located nucleus. What happens that it will divide and will form gametocytes, and these gametocytes are then encysted. This process of formation of these two gametocytes from the trophozoite, it's called as a syzygy. Okay, syzygy is the process. Now that these gametocytes have been produced, these gametocytes are covered by the cyst. One cyst. This is the cyst. The cyst is made up of two layers. One is the ectocyst and endocyst. Now this cyst, it encloses the gametocytes. These gametocytes further divide. The nucleus of the gametocyte, it divides. You can see the nuclear division takes place. These are the nucleus, the daughter nuclei. After the encystation, the daughter nuclei are formed. The daughter nuclei will then divide. These will divide and the cytoplasm will divide, and the formation of isogametes takes place. Now you observe here, these isogametes, these are pairing up. These are two isogametes, they will pair up, they will fuse, and they will form zygote. So pairing of these gametes takes place. That's why I have written here, they have written here the syngamy. Okay, this is the gametogony. This is the process of gametogony. What happens that gametocytes give rise to these isogametes which undergo syngamy and produce the zygotes. After the formation of these zygotes, now the sporogony happens. Okay, sporogony happens. This sporogony, it, you will see that this sporogony, now this is the cycle that is completely in the earthworm. In case of the sporogony, this zygote, it will get converted into sporoblasts. Okay, it is converted into sporoblast. Now these sporoblast, they will undergo division inside the sporoblast. There is division and there is formation of about 8 haploid spores. 8 haploid spores are produced in one sporocyst. Okay, one sporocyst. These are called as the sporozoites. These 8 haploid sporozoites are formed. Okay, in the cyst, in the sporocyst. These sporozoites, these are ingested by the earthworm. I told you earlier that sporozoites are the infective stages. They are released in the soil and they will be taken up by the new earthworm. They will be taken up by the new earthworm. After the earthworm takes them, when it goes into the body of the earthworm, it reaches the seminal vesicle of the earthworm. You will see that these burst open. These become free sporozoites. When they are released, they enter the sperm morula. They feed on the cytoplasm of the sperm and they will develop into the young sporozoite, and then they will form the adult trophozoite. They will form the young trophozoite. From that, it will further develop into adult sporozoite. So this is the whole life cycle of the monocystis. If you will see the process, the steps, first of all, this trophozoite, which is the feeding stage. Okay, it resides in the multinucleate cells of the that is a sperm morula, and it's active. Then gametogony, syzygy, I told you that these two mature trophozoites or the gametes, they come close to each other and they form the gametocyst. Okay, gametocyst. Inside the gametocyst, there are gametocytes. This arrangement is called as a syzygy. Then there is nuclear division. There is formation of these multiple nuclei that further divide into small isogametes. Isogametes is that they are similar looking gametes. These isogametes then fuse together to form zygote. When they form the zygote, this process is called as a syngamy. Then this zygote, this further divides into small spores. The spore formation, the formation of the haploid, 8 haploid sporozoites takes place, and then it's transmitted to the new host, and this whole cycle keeps on repeating. Okay, so it penetrates the intestinal wall of the seminal vesicle, and then they invert the sperm mother cell. So this is the whole life cycle of the Monocystis agilis, and we have discussed the Paramozoa. In this lecture we will discuss about the Plasmodium and Leishmania. If you will go through the previous year question of Plasmodium and Leishmania, you will observe that the questions have been mostly asked about the sexual asexual phase, that is the life cycle. The questions have been focused around the life cycle of the Plasmodium, so we will discuss it in detail. And you can even see the erythrocytic schizogony, hepatic schizogony. These questions have been repeated in 23, 24, 2018, 16. So this topic is very important as it has been asked many a times, even in the forest service. Then you will see the questions regarding the life history of Leishmania has also been asked very recently. In 24 it has been asked, and it has been even asked in 21 in CSE. So these are very important topics if you see the previous year questions. So we will cover every aspect of this topic, whether it's whatever is mentioned in the syllabus, in the syllabus, the general feature and the life cycle. These are the topics that are mentioned. So we will cover Plasmodium and Leishmania in detail. Starting with the Plasmodium, its habitat is that it's distributed worldwide between the 60° north and 46° south. So it is found mostly in these tropical areas and some of the temperate regions. Then you will see that it has two hosts. One is the vertebrate host and another is the invertebrate host. Vertebrate host includes the man or cattle, and in case of the invertebrate host, Anopheles, the female Anopheles mosquito, it acts as a vector of this Plasmodium protozoa. It was discovered in 1880 by Charles Leveran and other scientists who later on discovered the different phases of Plasmodium were Ronald Ross, Knowles and Dasgupta, and there were many more scientists too. When you see the systematic position of the Plasmodium, you will observe that the Plasmodium belongs to the phylum Protozoa, class Teleospora, order Coccidia, genus Plasmodium, and here we will discuss about the species Vivax. At the same time, you need to know that Plasmodium is the causative agent of malaria, the disease that is widespread, the malarial disease, one of the causes of concern for our country too. So it is the causative organism for malaria. There are different species of Plasmodium. You can see there is Plasmodium falciparum. It is present in the tropical areas and it's deadly when it is in humans. It has high parastemia and it causes severe malaria. Then Plasmodium vivax, it is the second type. It's found in Asia, Latin America and also in some parts of Africa. Then Plasmodium ovale, it is found in West Africa and Southeast Asia. Then we have Plasmodium malariae. It is found worldwide and it causes chronic infections. Then we have Plasmodium knowlesi. It's present in Southeast Asia. So these are some of the types of the Plasmodium species. If you will see that the Plasmodium, in the Plasmodium, the sporozoite structure is discussed. When you will see the structure, ultrastructure of the Plasmodium, the sporozoite in particular, you will see that its body is covered by this pellicle. Okay, there is this pellicle. Inside this pellicle, you will find a nucleus. There are prominent organelles that are the Golgi bodies, mitochondrion, and at the apical end, you will see there is apical cap. There are microtubules of the pellicle. You will also observe there is one paired organelle that are called as a rhoptres, and it has a micropyle. And inside it also has convoluted tubules. So in exam, whenever the question regarding the Plasmodium will come, you will draw this diagram. So you can see that it has an invasion machinery at the top, that is this apical complex. It is located at the apex. It has micronemes, it has rhabdries. These release the enzymes. These rhabdries, these release the enzyme in order to penetrate the host. And then you will also see some granules and polar rings. They have mitochondrion for generating the ATPs. There is apicoplast, that is non-photosynthetic plastid of algal origin, and it's surrounded by four membranes. So you can find them inside the body of this sporozoite. Then they also have ER and Golgi bodies, and the genome, it has tripartite genome, that is, one is nuclear, another is mitochondrial, and there is circular apicoplast genome too. So this is the structure of the sporozoite in general of the Plasmodium. Now discussing the major aspect of this topic, that is the life cycle of Plasmodium. Let us start from here. What happens, for example, you have this human host. Okay, this is a human host here. This is a human host. This mosquito will come and it will take in blood meal. When it will take in the blood meal, this mosquito will take in the blood meal, there is presence of the sporozoites. There is presence of sporozoites in the proboscis of this mosquito. So there is presence of sporozoites in the mosquitoes. So there is presence of sporozoites in the proboscis of mosquito, which are released when it takes in the blood of this human. Then what happens, that these sporozoites, they enter into the blood. When they enter into the blood, they move towards the liver cells. Okay, they will move towards the liver cells. Once they move into the liver cells, it takes about 30 minutes to reach the liver, these sporozoites. Inside the liver cells, they will infect these liver cells, and after the infection, they will form the schizonts. This is the liver cell, that is now the schizont, which contains the sporozoites. When these sporozoites, they are larger in number, they will form the merozoites inside the liver cell. And when these merozoites, these are released by the rupture of this liver cell, or the rupture of the schizont, these merozoites, they are released into the blood. Now this cycle, it is carried out in the human liver. So this is called as the exoerythrocytic cycle. Exo is outside, erythrocytic is outside the erythrocytes, that is outside the RBCs. So next what happens, these merozoites, they will enter the RBC. Okay, they will enter the RBC. Now this is the erythrocytic cycle happening in the RBC. They will enter the RBC, and there the immature trophozoite stage is developed. The immature trophozoite stage is developed, which is ring-like. Okay, this is also the signet ring stage. It's also called as a signet ring stage. You can see there is immature trophozoite. It forms a ring-like structure. Then it further divides and it forms merozoites. Okay, it will form the merozoites. These merozoites, they again rupture and they go inside the blood, and they can even go back into the liver cell or infect the other RBC. So it will continue infecting the RBCs like this. At the same time, we will also observe that some of the trophozoite, they will form the gametocytes. Okay, they will form the gametocytes. These gametocytes, they will be, one will be male, another one be female. There will be two types of gametocyte, male and female. What happens, that when the mosquito, this Anopheles mosquito, will come and they will take in the blood meal. Okay, when they will take in the blood meal, it will take up the gametocyte, the male and female gametocyte. Now this cycle, once it takes the blood meal from this human, now this cycle continues in the mosquito. These are the mosquito stage. In this case, the male gamete, it will form the microgamete, and in case of females, the female gamete, it will form the macrogamete. Micro and macrogamete. Inside the mosquito, the fertilization will take place and the ookinete is formed. This is the ookinete. Ookinete will be formed, and then this ookinete, it will form the oocyst. It will form the oocyst. From the oocyst, this oocyst will release the sporozoite. Inside the oocyst, the sporozoites will develop, and then what happens that these sporozoites, they will migrate inside the body of the this mosquito, and they will reach the proboscis, and from this proboscis again the sporozoites will be released inside the human body, and then into the liver cells where the merozoites are made, and then the exoerythrocytic cycle, and a few of them will form the gametocytes, and the cycle continues. So this is the whole life cycle of the Plasmodium vivax. If you will observe that there are three forms. One is the merozoite. Merozoite is the non-motile and it will invade the erythrocyte. Sporozoite form we already studied in detail. The parts of the sporozoite, it's motile and it invades. It will invade the liver cells. Then you will see we have ookinete. Ookinete is also motile and it is the it will invade the mosquito's gut epithelial. Okay, now you will see the different phases. I told you in humans the asexual phase will be there. In case of asexual phase, the transmission of the sporozoite take place through the blood meal, and the sporozoites, they migrate to the liver, and here the exoerythrocytic schizogony is observed. So if the question related the schizogony comes or liver schizogony comes, you will write these steps and you will make the diagram in particular. Then you will see they invade the hepatocyte and they undergo the asexual replication. They form the schizont there. So this sporozoite, they form the schizont in the liver over for about 2 weeks. Then this schizont is really ruptured and they release tens of thousands of the merozoites in the bloodstream. Then what happens that if these merozoites, if these sporozoites, if they remain dormant, they are called as the hypnozoites, which can be reactivated later. Then you will see the blood stage, that is the erythrocytic schizogony. In this case, the merozoites, they will invade the red blood cells, and inside the red blood cells, they will form the ring stage trophozoite, then mature trophozoite, and some will undergo the multiple nuclear division to form the schizont. And this whole cycle, it will last for 48 to 72 hours. Okay. So some merozoite, they will differentiate into gametocytes and they will form the male and female sexual stages. You will observe that in case of the mosquito phase, the gametocyte uptake takes place, then it develops in the mosquito's gut, the micro and the macro, and then oocyst is formed. This oocyst, what it does, it will form the ookinete. This ookinete, it forms the oocyst. So ookinete will penetrate the gut wall and will reach the proboscis finally, where it will release the sporozoites, and finally these sporozoites, they will migrate to the salivary gland of this mosquito and they will be transmitted to next human host. So this is the whole life cycle of mosquito in detail, of this Plasmodium in mosquito as well as human in detail. Now there is this malaria that is caused by it is transmitted through the bite of infected mosquito, that is the female Anopheles mosquito, and it's caused by the Plasmodium. In 2023, there were about 263 million cases of malaria. If you will see that there are 4 types of malaria. One is the malignant tertian. it is caused by falciparum, and it is roughly the symptoms, there are severe symptoms every 48 hours. Then we have benign tertian, which is caused by vivax and ovale, and it's predictable in 48-hour fever cycle. In cotton, benign cotton, there is 72-hour cycle, and quotidian, there is 24-hour cycle. It's caused by novelaceae. Then there are three stages in malaria. One is cold, another one is hot, and then third is sweating. Cold, hot, and sweating. In case of cold, there are intense chills, there is shivering, there is cold skin. In case of hot stage, there is high fever, flushed skin, and headaches. And in case of sweating, there is the profuse sweat, and temperature drops, and fatigue also happens. So it lasts for 15 to 60 minutes in case of cold stage. In case of hot stage, it lasts for 2 to 6 hours, and in case of sweating, it is for 2 to 4 hours. So these are the stages of the malaria. Now, how will you prevent, and what are the drugs for the malaria? First one is the Proguanil. Then there are drugs named as doxycycline. Some are mefloquine. So these are some of the drugs options that are given for malaria, but at the same time, there are other ways to control. For example, there is habitat reduction. You can eliminate the stagnant water. There is control of larvae using the larvicidal, these larvicidal or the larvivorous fishes like Gambusia. Okay, these are the larvicides, and some oils are also there. Then you can also do the spraying using the pyrethroids. There can be use of repellents, use of integrated vector management, community engagement, and housing improvements like using the door screen, like using the repellents. For example, you use the Odomos. So malaria, how it can be prevented, what are the different stages, this is all about the Plasmodium. We have discussed it in detail. Now we will discuss about the Leishmania. Leishmania is the causative agent for the visceral leishmaniasis. Okay. Visceral leishmaniasis. Visceral leishmaniasis, or the Kala Azar, or the black fever. It was discovered by Donovan. It was discovered by Leishman and Donovan. Donovan found it in Madras, and Ronald Ross later on gave the genus of this Leishmania. He gave the genus Leishmania. You will see that it has two hosts. One is the female sandfly, that is Phlebotomus. It is the intermediate host, and its definitive host is human. And it is in two forms. One is the amastigote form, another is the promastigote form. Amastigote form is circular, it is smaller in size, and it is without the flagellum. But the promastigote, this form is having the flagellar pocket, it is having the flagella, it has the kinetoplast, it has all the other organelles, and it's longer in size. It is spindle shaped, but amastigote is more or less oval in shape. You will see that the systematic position is the phylum Protozoa, class Zoomastigophora, order Kinetoplastida, and genus Leishmania. And here the species will be Donovani. If you will observe the life cycle of the Leishmania, you will see that this particular sandfly Phlebotomus, it will come and it will take up the blood meal. Okay, it will take up the blood meal and it will inject the promastigote stage in the skin. So it will inject this promastigote stage. This is the promastigote stage. It will inject it into the blood of this human. What happens that these promastigotes, they will go and they will infect the macrophages. They will be eaten up by the macrophages. They will be phagocytized by the phagocytized by the macrophages. So macrophages are the immune cells that prevent the infection by eating up the foreign agents. For the body, this promastigote form, it is a foreign agent. So this macrophage will come and will be so this macrophage will eat up this promastigote stage. Once it has been taken by by these macrophages, there will be conversion of promastigote into amastigote within the macrophage. Okay, so this promastigote now is formed into amastigote. Now this amastigote, they multiply. Okay, they will multiply, and inside the cell they will multiply, and they will also infect, they will get released, and they will infect many other cells in the body. After that, you will observe one thing that is called as the nocturnal periodicity. Nocturnal periodicity. Now this nocturnal periodicity, it is the term given when this this amastigote form, this will circulate in the blood, but on the peripheral regions. On the peripheral means on the skin, on the vessels, on the blood that is near to the skin. So that and it happens at the night time. That's why it's called as the nocturnal. At the night time, this protozoa, this Leishmania amastigote, it will come near the skin, it will come near the surface, because from there, if the sandfly will come and take the blood meal, it will be easy for the sandfly to get infected. It will take up the amastigote from the skin region of this human or cattle, whoever is the host at that time. So the amastigote form will be taken up by the sandfly at night time through the blood meal. Now, once it has been once it has been ingested by the sandfly, now this amastigote is transformed into promastigote in the gut of the sandfly. Inside the proboscis, inside the gut, this promastigote, it will undergo binary fission like this. It will keep on dividing. It will divide in the gut, and it will then migrate to the proboscis, and in the proboscis there is promastigote form. There is promastigote form in the proboscis, and from the proboscis it will again continue this cycle of conversion from promastigote to amastigote in the humans after the bite of the human. Now this is how the cycle repeats. So I said, first of all, there is transmission from sandfly to humans. Then the promastigote, it is taken up by the macrophages, where it gets divided and it forms the amastigotes. Then there is this intracellular multiplication of amastigotes. Then this sandfly, it will ingest during the nocturnal periodicity. Here the nocturnal periodicity has been explained, that it is the activity occurring roughly midnight to 3 a.m. During this period, the number of parasite or amastigotes they are present in the blood increases, and the availability for the vector to feed and then take up this amastigote form, it increases during the night time. So then this transformation happens in the sandfly's gut, where the promastigote is converted. It undergoes stages like nectomonads, leptomonads, and finally promastigote. Now this promastigote, it enters the humans finally, and the cycle continues. The prophylaxis include, firstly, the personal protection. One can use the repellents which include the DEET. Then this human can also use the long sleeved clothes at night. There can be use of nets and window screens. The sprays can be used which contain the pyrenoids. Cleanliness is very important. There has to be continuous water removal, and clean animal shelters have to be kept at home. Not the stagnant water, not the infection causing elements. Like in case of cattle rearing, there are various places where you will find the stagnant water containing all the dirt. It's not to be kept like that, because it causes many diseases. Then again, community screening has to be done. There are various drugs like amphotericin. There is there is amphotericin, there is paromomycin, there is antimonials. These are the drugs that can be used in case of the leishmaniasis, visceral leishmaniasis, or the black fever. So the question can be, explain the causative agent, that is the leishmania, of the black fever or kala azar. So the question can come anyway, and you have to answer it, whether it's for 10 marks, whether it's for 15 marks or 20 marks. There you can explain the whole life cycle in detail. So this is all about Plasmodium and Leishmania.